Welcome everyone to our third installment of Career Conversations. This installment is for Women's History Month. It's a Women's History Month wrap-up celebration. It's March 31st, 2023, last day of Women's History Month. And we are so excited to have with us an excellent panel of speakers. We have Natalie, Traci, and Otega joining us from various parts of the STEM fields and talk about their career journeys and the importance of intersectionality in the feminist movement. So I'm just going to get started and get us grounded here. So first off, as we start any event with Oregon MESA, we love to acknowledge the land and take action. Land acknowledgements are important, and it's also important for us to take action. So I'm going to read off of this slide and then later on, make sure that you visit the chat for 3 actions that you can take today. So we honor the stolen land that we are on. Portland State University rests on traditional and ancestral homelands of the Multnomah, the Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Guatemala bands of the Chinook, the Tualatin Kalapuya, and many other indigenous nations along the Columbia River. Join us in acknowledging the land and uplifting the future of indigenous Oregonians. So once again, please see the chat for 3 actions that you can take today. So Career Conversations, a brief introduction to it. It is a series that we started back in fall of 2022. It is a new series, and it is a career talk as well as a heritage and identity celebration. It has a theme every time. The first one that we had was a Career Conversations, a Hispanic, Latina celebration. And then we also had Career Conversations, a Native American History Month celebration as well. So this is our 3rd installment, and we're here to celebrate history and heritage and uplift the voices of different folks throughout the different STEM fields. And we're really here to inspire our Oregon MESA students. So to get started, what is intersectionality? I'm going to play a video that is going to explain to us what intersectionality is and why it's important that we talk about it.
Intersectionality. Intersectionality.
Intersectionality.
Intersectionality.
You may have heard this term used before, but what does it mean? And where did it come from? Let's start by introducing Kimberly Crenshaw, a scholar, writer, professor, and civil rights advocate who coined the term herself in 1989. Her research and work in critical race theory has led to groundbreaking influences. She first introduced the term in an essay that was published in the University of Chicago Legal Forum. It was titled, "Demarginalizing the Intersection of Race and Sex." This essay addressed the discrimination of Black women and how being Black and being a woman are not mutually exclusive. In other words, race and gender overlap to define one's experiences and identity. This is what is called intersectionality. Her impact has led the term to being used in movements today. In May 2020, following the murder of George Floyd, Leah Thomas, founder of Intersectional Environmentalists, called on the environmental community to make a pledge to Black lives and commit to a journey of intersectional advocacy that would amplify silenced voices. The support received led to the founding of IE, also known as Intersectional Environmentalists, a community where intersectionality plays an important role to advocate for both the people and the planet.
Hey, I'm Leah Thomas. I'm a writer, environmental activist, and the founder of Intersectional Environmentalist. Intersectionality to me, very heavily influenced by Kimberly Crenshaw and intersectional theory, which she created. To me, it's kind of how our overlapping identities all intersect in some way, because we're dynamic human beings, and I'm just as much Black as I am a woman, and all of these other parts of my identity, including spirituality, sexuality, gender, on and on.
Intersectionality is a framework with which to approach the way that different folks navigate the world based on various identities. That can include race, ability, sex, gender, among other things as well. And it helps us to really pinpoint the different ways that folks navigate different spaces with varying levels of advantage and disadvantage.
I think intersectionality for me really means is seeing how the system is interconnected with our own impacts in the environment. Most often not, I think that we don't necessarily relate to ourselves to earth-based systems. And I think that when we look at it through a holistic lens and through a cultural lens, I think we're able to really understand the interconnectedness of intersectionality work.
Intersectionality means recognizing how the world privileges certain folks based on things that they might not be able to control, and it tries to dismantle those ideas.
Intersectionality means to me of supporting and cross-promoting all of our frontline movements, all of our communities oppressed and marginalized across the board over every issue from environmental justice to social economic justice to racial justice.
When I think about intersectionality, and especially in this environmentalism, when you connect those two together, you want people to understand the limitations that others have been placed into and how you can help them through that.
Kimberly Crenshaw's theory has redefined movements to be inclusive and accessible to communities who are more often than not left out of the conversation. It's opened up opportunities for generations to come. And to keep it going, we stand here today and say, the future is intersectional.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so moving on. Well, first, before I introduce our panelists, now that we had a couple more people join us, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Valentina London. I am the Outreach and Engagement Coordinator at Oregon MESA, and I have had the pleasure of hosting career conversations now this is the third time. So I'm really happy to be here to guide the discussion, but I am just here to moderate, and I'm gonna just pass it off to our panelists because we have a really, really amazing set of women here today to talk about their career paths. So starting with Traci, who's joining us from Mount Hood Community College. She is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And Traci, we're so happy to have you here. Would love to hear what you have to share with our students.
Yes, I obviously sent you an old one because I'm the Associate Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Mount Hood Community College, but I am a proud Portland State University alumna. I started my career in higher education while I was still a student at Portland State. So one of my instructors was like, "You're amazing. I really want you to help me redesign this course." And so I started doing some work for her and kind of wound my way into higher education, although I was actually majoring in community health and health sciences. I really wanted to go into STEM, but education found me. And so I kind of show up now in the work with a lot of passion for helping students who are just like me. I struggled in my education with, all of the things like basic needs, housing, food insecurity, just the regular struggles of having to balance education and my regular life and career, working multiple jobs while just trying to put myself through school. And so I kind of show up in the spaces that I'm in right now to advocate for students who have a similar lived experience. I show up unapologetically as a Black woman, and that's also interesting. And when we talk about academia and the reception to Black women in academia, but part of, my work is about, redesigning systems for equity and making sure that students, especially women identified students, have opportunities to excel in all of the disciplines, but specifically STEM. And so I'm here to be a constant supporter of Oregon MESA and the students who benefit from these programs. I'll stop there.
That was amazing. So excited to get to the Q&A and ask you some more follow-up questions. Thank you for that. I'm gonna pass it off now to Natalie, who joins us from AnswerConnect. She is the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of AnswerConnect. Natalie, I'll pass it off to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Valentina. I am the CEO of AnswerConnect, which is a company that provides people-powered services and software to small businesses worldwide. And I'm a CEO of a telecom and technology company now, but I'll tell you that the path that led me to do this didn't even hint, not even to me, that I would be leading a global tech organization. And with that, I used to be a little bit embarrassed about aspects of my past, my upbringing, the way that I got to be doing what I'm doing now. But I've come to realize that I wouldn't be who I am without every single experience, every single thing that didn't go exactly as planned, all of the schooling that I thought was going to go one way and went another. It all brought me to this specific place. Going way back in kind of the Natalie time machine, growing up in a very rural place without much TV, pre-internet, and not much exposure to the bigger world, it definitely presented challenges for me, but it also gave me a voracious appetite for reading and learning and being curious. It also made me a very hard worker and resilient, where I didn't have maybe access or exposure to some of the same things that my peers did. And I had so many helpers along my life, so many advocates, so many mentors, so many people who reached out and extended a hand, and it made a world of difference. I got into tech as a non-techie. I actually joined my company as a temporary call center employee after having a myriad of very, very strange jobs that I could go into, highlights or lowlights, depending on how you want to look at it. Could be selling used cars, being a landscaper, definitely doing customer service, hospitality, restaurant work, etc. None of that which really screamed executive leadership or tech. I didn't finish university, but I was really interested in communications and journalism and political science, and never knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I knew how I wanted to feel and what kind of an impact I wanted to make. And when I found my way into AnswerConnect, I was really lucky to be surrounded by some advocates who reached out their hand and gave me opportunities. I worked my way through the organization as first a call center employee, somebody in sales, somebody in account management, and then eventually somebody who worked with our development team. Not a software developer, but somebody who could definitely break things and speak to the customer experience that we wanted to have. And along the way, earned some certifications in Agile and Scrum and things like that, which helped me be a better project manager and somebody who kind of could speak some of the language. What I now think is that really technology is all around us. And even if we aren't or don't think that we are in tech, we're tech adjacent and we're using it. I would say for students, for people who are working towards a career in STEM or who are kind of wondering what paths to take, I would say stay curious. The world today is changing so quickly. Technology is changing fast. And I think some keys to my success as a non-techie in tech have really come from being a great communicator, somebody who has worked on EQ. We know all about IQ, but emotional intelligence is maybe starting to be talked about a little bit more. But being able to communicate your ideas, being able to advocate for yourself and others, being able to make your vision clear will take you far. And if you look at the AI advances in ChatGPT, Google, Microsoft, and many other tech giants across the board, you can see how quickly these have gained in popularity just in recent months. So I don't know where this all leads. I don't know where we end up even in the next 6 months or 6 years, but I think that for students, staying nimble, continuing to learn and continuing to be open to what the future brings is going to lead to success. And finally, I would say don't sleep on human connections. My world has been broadened by the people who I have met along the way, all the helpers who have helped me, and in a leadership position now that I know has privilege and has a platform, I want to pay back those opportunities or pay forward those opportunities and help others, because certainly folks have taken a chance on me.
Well, that's so inspiring. Thank you so much, Natalie. All right, now moving on. I would love to introduce Otega, who joins us from Intel, actually Oregon women at Intel, and we're so happy to have Otega here with us today. Otega, take it away.
Thank you, Valentina, and I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Oregon MESA, and the wonderful team who put this event together. I really appreciate it. So I'm Nigerian born, so historically, most African countries, especially Nigeria, would put more importance on the boy child than the girl child. And although this concept has started to change considering we're in the 21st century, you still come in contact with one or two persons that would think that way. So years ago when I was born, I'm actually the fourth girl of my family. And so I have three older sisters. And while my mom was in the hospital, someone approached her, someone who clearly knew my family, and said, "A girl again?" And then my parents were like, girls are just as important as boys. And so as soon as I was old enough to hear that story, I totally heard it. My parents told me about it. And that was like a really strong driving force towards the successes that I achieved as I grew older. So right from kindergarten to college, I just had that drive because I knew that I wanted to prove that, of course, a girl child was just as important as a boy child. And I was lucky to get the education that I needed because both my parents were educated. And so we had that platform, we were pushed to do as much as we wanted to. My parents opened the floor up to us based on our passion. And in high school, middle school, I was very involved with like science projects. Once I read an article on how Ben Carson separated the twins, I totally wanted to be a doctor. I was like, that's what I want to be. I got into the science class. I got into a lot of work there, got into school. Somehow I didn't end up in medical school, but I told the class of my dad because my dad's a chemist as well. But after college, graduated summa cum laude, was great. And I decided that I wanted more, right? I wanted more. I knew there was something out there beyond the African continent, more advanced technology. At the time, I got a scholarship to grad school to do my PhD at the University of South Carolina. I was excited. But the downside was prior to then, I had not really paid attention to what the stereotype of Black people were outside of Africa. It's not something I considered at all. But then the reality dawned on me when I got to USC. And of course, I faced a lot of things, humiliation, a lot of people trying to downgrade you and relegate you to the background, which is really hard. But the most important thing for me was my support system. My parents are very supportive, a lot of prayers and friends. And at that time, my first year was a very tough year because at some point I started to doubt myself. I started to doubt my intelligence. But then with all the encouragement and lots of prayers, I realized that if I got here with hard work and achievement, then I deserve it. And it's one thing I want everyone to take away. If you don't forget everything, don't forget this. If you got there, you deserve it. And regardless of whatever stereotypes that you may face, don't let that bug you. Just keep that focus tight and you'll definitely achieve the goals that you set for yourself. And I'll stop there, but I just want you to know that regardless of your background, regardless of what you've been told, whatever stereotype attached to race, spirituality, sex, whatever, you got there because you deserve it. So, yeah, thank you.
That was beautiful. So true. So great. Thank you, Otega. We are going to move on to the best part of career conversations is the discussion and the Q&A, the question and answer section. So now that we've learned a little bit about our panelists, I'm going to move on to our questions for our speakers. And I do want to give priority to the questions from our audience. So if you do have a question, we do have like the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom meeting. If you would like to drop your question in there, I would love to hear from the audience if you have any questions for our speakers. And if not, I'm going to kick it off with our first question that we have for our speakers, which is, when we mention Women's History Month, what event, concept, or topic comes to mind first? And I will go in order of the order that we just went in. So I'll have Traci start, followed by Natalie, and then Otega. So Traci, if you could give us your answer?
Yes, it's more of a concept, right? For me, there's no one event in the history of women, right? We're talking 50,000 years, of women being in existence. So no one event, but I think about, a concept of celebration, of veneration. I come from a background and culture where women are the matriarchs of our families. We absolutely look up to the women of our families as not only, the people who, make the rules and run the house, but also we don't have a long history of women like staying at home. Like that's not a thing in the Black community. So women as breadwinners, women as people who have supported their families in many ways. And so, from that concept, I think about the strength of women, the intelligence of women as something to marvel at. I was a sociology minor, and so did a lot of time thinking about the role of women in a society that we currently exist in, and the third shift, and women who are caregivers and partners and workers and doing all of these amazing things. And so I think about that concept of like, how do we not only lift up the experiences of women through that celebration in Women's History Month, but also talk about the struggles, right? The actual struggles of women, whether that's for women, from my background to demand their freedom, the women's suffrage movement that often did not include Black women. We had to fight for our own suffrage outside of that, right? Thinking about just the women on the shoulders of which I stand, and not all of them are Black women, many of them are, but the first woman who gave me an opportunity in higher education was a Jewish woman. I've had the experience and the amazing opportunities to work under some of the strongest women ever. And so I just think about, as I am becoming a stronger person, I'm always thinking about how do I lift up those who paved the way for me, who will continue to pave the way for me. And as a parent of two girl children, what does it look like for me to set them up for a life of success, and also celebrate their unique talents and personalities that they bring forward. But I think about the concept of just like, how do we love up on women? How do we lift up women and celebrate them?
Yeah, totally agree. I love that. I love thinking of it that way, as well as like empowerment. It's amazing. All right, Natalie.
Well, that was so beautiful, Traci. I love everything that you said. Definitely standing on the shoulders of giants, all the women who've come before us is something that comes to mind. The other thing that comes to mind is how much disparity still exists. Because, when you get a month, it means you don't necessarily have the whole rest of the year. And so there's so much work still to be done. There is so much progress still to be made before we get to a true place of equity. That said, if I had a choice of any other time in history to be alive, I'd choose now. And there's so many reasons for that. The connectivity, the ability to be in a room, in a space, to have so much of a discussion even about where we're at, where we've been, and where we want to be is pretty magical. And I think amongst women, there is this camaraderie, there's community, there's uplifting, and there's a knowing. And I'm so grateful for that.
All right, Otega. Do you have
yeah, Traci and Natalie have pretty much said everything, but definitely the first thing that comes to mind is celebrating the resilience that is womanhood. So whether it's the stay-at-home mom or it's the professional mom, for me, women are literally the custodians of society. And it's important that we see that in order to get a healthy society. So just as Natalie said, building up the list to see what's yet to be done to achieve that equity that we crave, that we need as a society, as well as celebrating the strength that women have, and if it's raising kids, or the professional women, or appreciating the women that have given us a chance or have pushed us to be where we are today. So definitely that's the concept of compliment.
I love that. And I love Elizabeth's comment, agreeing with Otega, custodians of society. So true. Wonderful. Okay, so next question is going to be, why do you feel passionate about your field and why is it important to you? And then a follow-up to that question is, how is your work related to the invention-based projects students do at MESA? And for this order of answers, we'll go Otega first, Traci second, and Natalie third. So back to you, Otega.
Okay. So for me, as soon as you said this question, the first thing that came to mind is each time at post-COVID, the first time I had, recently when I did go on site for like a training, I wasn't surprised when I walked in, I was the only Black woman, actually the only Black, and then Black woman. And then it was a room full of like engineers. And I've gotten used to that over time, so it doesn't bug me, but also gets me thinking, like, if I'm the only person here and we have more than 30 people here, then we need more people like me here. So my passion really is, how can I get more people into the STEM field that look like me? Because the most important thing is, I know that they are capable of doing this. And then the question is, how do we create a platform to help them get there? So I really am passionate about my field because it may seem like it could be a male-dominated field sometimes over the years, but then when women break through and then get there, it's usually for me very exciting. And so, plus it's pivotal to literally every aspect of development as a human being. Like being a chemist, chemistry is like, you can go into industry, you can go into academia at any time you want. And in the industry, you can go to pharmaceuticals, food technology, you can do literally anything. And which is not what many people know about chemistry. People just feel, if you're reading a basic science course, what good is it to you? So I spend time trying to enlighten people and on how important or how really lucrative, if you want, chemistry or engineering can be. And to our students in MESA, science is everywhere. So for every little project that you have, be it the one from like middle school where you do like the makeshift volcano to the actual like college, your thesis project, it's definitely related on every platform. And no matter how small the science project is, it's tasking your brain to think about the possible evolutions that could happen in future in the field.
Love that. Thank you, Otega. Okay, we'll pass it off to Traci now.
Yeah. So, any career in STEM starts with education. And we know our education systems need a lot of work. Not here to use deficit language, but there's investments that must be made. There's opportunities that must be open, and specifically to women and women of color in STEM. And so, right, if you are not able to successfully move through the education system, you are likely never to end up in the role that you have desired your whole life, right? And so for me, it's about designing systems that allow people to experience different opportunities. When I think about, some of the STEM programs that we offer, many of those programs are closed programs, right? There's an application process. You've got to get vetted. You've got to have a certain GPA. And in some ways, that functions as gatekeeping. Where certain people are benefited by those systems and others aren't. So I'm always looking at the systems that we have to make sure that they offer and confer the most opportunity to the people who are most in need of an opportunity. And I, just think about, living wage jobs, right? The function of education is, of course, to open up one's mind, but also to put something in their pocket, right? Most of my students don't come to school just because they want to take courses. No, they're looking to have a living wage job and an opportunity in a future. And so that's how my work intersects with this work. On the other side of it, I've been part of Oregon MESA for some years now, and giving and dedicating my time to make sure that the projects are, looked at with an amazing lens. We're excited about our students and what they're producing. But I also recognize within the framework of neurodiversity, there are some students who just learn best with their hands, by doing, by making, by creating. And they continue to show us what's possible when they're given the tools and the opportunity to be creative and think outside of the box. And so super excited about the invention-based projects and what that says for our future, right? If we have a great diversity of people who are using their brains to create new things, right? We solve problems of the future that we don't even know that exist right now. And that is super exciting.
I love that. It's so great. We're so lucky to have you as a part of the Oregon MESA community, Traci. Okay, Natalie.
I'm passionate about my field for a couple of reasons. So my business is to help small businesses. And we live in an age of big box stores and same day delivery and all of these things. And I really think that I'm a huge advocate and believer in small business for a lot of reasons, but at its base, because that means opportunity, that means real people, it means innovation, it means maybe less gigantic conglomerates. So I want to continue supporting small business owners, giving them tech so they can take their work with them in their pocket, so they can get more time back. I mean, time is our most finite resource, and that's what we're doing. My company is fully remote as well, and we've been at remote work since 2007. And so a lot of the software and tech that we've developed has helped other businesses get there even before we all had to jump into the deep end on that a few years ago. And that opens up access, that opens up opportunity, that's brought jobs to rural places. It's really given us the ability to be global, which has enriched the lives of all of us. So very passionate about this. And I truly also believe that we all want to see change and we all want to see progress, and businesses, companies can be a vehicle for change. In fact, I think they can be one of the most powerful vehicles for change when they have a set of core values, when they have a mission, and when that aligns with wanting to see those positive impacts in society. It gives people like me a platform to speak about it and to be involved here. And I think if more businesses continue to have that conversation, we're literally putting our money where our mouth is, or we can at least. That obviously relates to MESA in lots and lots of ways. So it's
true. Okay, we have a question from the audience. So this question is from Dave Squire. He asks, technical skills are important, but all of you didn't get to where you are on technical skills alone. What additional skills are most important to your success? And feel free to think on an answer and unmute if you're ready to answer.
I think Natalie kind of spoke to it earlier, right? The ability to communicate effectively, I think is huge, right? To be able to say what you want and say what you mean, and, communicate effectively for the purpose of collaboration and understanding and having a diversity of thought in different spaces. I think also, the soft skills, we call them soft skills, but the ability to know when to step back, when to check out yourself when you're feeling overloaded. I mean, there's so many different ways of being self-aware that are really important for the work that I do. I'm having difficult conversations all the time. Diversity, equity, and inclusion work, belonging work, justice work requires one to be able to have really meaningful conversations, but sometimes they can be adversarial or feel contentious, right? And so I think some of the skill sets that I learned along the way were about how to just manage my own time, how to manage my own, emotional spaces, how to take care of myself, how to take care of others. But it all comes down to communication and that ability to be mindful of your own situation and, how you're showing up in the world to be able to be effective at your work.
Thank you for that. Super, super helpful. Anybody else have anything to add?
Sure. Traci already said everything, but I'm just going to add 2 points: fearless and confident. You have to be fearless, especially if you're from a minority and people tend to shush you. When you're somewhere or trying to make your point, sometimes they succeed, but sometimes you just have to be really communicative of what you want, just like Traci said. So definitely be fearless when you want to achieve your goal, and be confident.
That's so true. It's so true. And a lot of the times I would like to add to what Otega said, our students, even if they just have one person that's tells them that what they're doing is good, if they just have one adult in their life telling them, gives them that boost of confidence. It makes all the difference in the world, especially in the formative years of their lives. Natalie, do you have anything to add?
I loved everything that Otega and Traci said, but I was going to say, to the fearless point, if you can't quite get to fearless, do it scared. Fake it until you feel it. I've done a lot of things scared. I still do a lot of things scared. And know that there's a lot of other people who seem like they're confident, who might seem like they're fearless, that are faking it too. And that's okay.
Yep, it's true. Okay, I'm gonna go to our next prepared question. So we've got, our next question is, what societal pressures have you felt as a woman in your career field? And again, this is intersectional, as a woman of color, as a woman, from a low income background, however you want to take this question. We'll go in the order of Natalie, Otega, and Traci. So Natalie, take it away.
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have? Right. So many different societal pressures. When we do talk about intersectionality, that's, all of me walking into a space. I can list some of them. Previously, the thing that's previously known as imposter syndrome, which I don't think we're supposed to call it a syndrome because it's society that makes us feel this way. It's not us. The impossible tightrope related to how we show up at work as women. You need to make sure that you're spruced up, but not too much makeup and not too much this. And if you're too young or you're too old or you're this, or too much or too little, heaven forbid you're assertive, because that could be aggressive. Heaven forbid. So many societal pressures. I'm a mom, and that is an entire conversation about societal pressures, the assumptions that folks make about how you might feel or what you might want to attend or where your attention may or may not be, navigating the world as a woman with an intersectional identity, and then being a mom. It puts a lot of pressure. And what I know is those pressures take us away from doing our best work. Because if you don't have to think or worry about walking that tightrope or shrinking to fit or somehow meeting the expectations or ensuring that your boss would never worry that maybe you were distracted thinking about, growing a human inside of your body or something like this, then you might just be able to come up with creative ideas. So yeah, there's tons of different pressures that come into play with all of the things that walk into a room when you're a person with intersecting identities.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, Otega.
Natalie literally took the words out of my mouth. She pretty much covered everything because I was going to talk more on the assertive nature. So the society expects you to be soft-spoken, don't say too much. But then when you come out as outspoken, and pretty much assertive and just like, oh, this was pretty controlling or something like that. And it's pretty much something you can sense in a room when you walk in. And then if it's different environments, like different races, and then in the career world, when you walk into a room and you're the only Black woman, you get different kinds of looks. And those looks pretty much tell you what sometimes what you're thinking, maybe sometimes it's in your head because you've just gotten those looks time and time again. But definitely the pressure is there, especially for a Black woman, because you're Black and then you're a woman and then you're in the tech space, the semiconductor industry. So you definitely feel the societal pressures of that. So yeah, a lot.
Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. So we're so lucky. I just want to again highlight like our panel is so amazing. You all have like amazing things to say. Traci, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. And Dave said so much, I mean, that I absolutely resonate with. I would say, you know, when I think about academia as a project of exclusion, right? When we think back to who higher ed was originally created for, who has historically benefited from higher education, right? It's not people who come from my background. And so I've never been one to feel like I didn't belong, but I am more of a person, the societal pressure comes from not wanting to ever be the only one. Like, what does it look like to not just open the door and walk through it and let it close behind me, but to like literally get out the, you know, power tools and take the door off the hinges and bring other people with me. And I think that is a struggle. It's something that I contend with all the time and trying to make the spaces that I'm in so that I'm not, you know, ever the first woman of color, like I'm just one of them, and making sure that I'm, you know, creating spaces for other Black women, other Latina women, other Indigenous women, women who bring a different kind of understanding of the world, different lived experiences into spaces with me. So yeah, taking the hinges off is a societal pressure, because I want to make sure that this, you know, the spaces that I occupy are inclusive and I'm not the only one.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy of taking the hinges off. It's so great. Absolutely. And I think it's so important to highlight like the good, like not just, oh, you know, this was always a space where it was only for these people and now it's, you know, there's just like one person that, you know, looks like me or looks like whoever. Like we need to highlight the really, really good people, the success stories. Like I feel like we focus a lot on the negative. And I think it's important to recognize that, but like we are just so lucky to just be in a world where like an Oregon MESA exists and we have, you know, our students that have the access to listen to you all in a career talk like tonight. We have some questions from the audience and I want to highlight them because they're both from students who were either about to graduate from PSU or are recent graduates of the College of Engineering. So I want to start off with the question of Kende, who asks, as a soon to graduate undergrad, how did you prepare yourself for your professional career path and the real world after graduating college?
I can go. So talking from my experience, as soon as because I think the first step will be to ask yourself where you want to be. Where you want to be, where do you want to go? Do you want to go into the industry? Do you want to go into academia? So for me, as an undergrad then, my penultimate year, my final year, I knew that I wanted to study more. And so I focused more on my thesis because to get into grad school, they're very interested in, at least in the field of chemistry and engineering, what form of like research have you done? What projects have you embarked on? They want to see how your thought process basically when it comes to your field. So first of all, you want to know where you want to be, academia, or industry, and then you your goals in that area. So if it's academia, you want to push more into research, it's for the industry. Also make contacts. I think Natalie talked about human contacts and communication and networking in general, like talk to people that have been there, get more mentors if you can. That way you're prepared in the direction you want to go. And if you're not sure, that's also fine, because definitely having mentors will kind of like expose you to the different worlds and then make you see more clearly where you think you want to be post-migration.
That's excellent advice. Thank you, Otega. Does anybody else have anything to add to this question?
I mean, I can add, I said earlier, you know, my foray into higher ed started with me being a student, and I had an amazing instructor, Eden Eisenstein, and, you know, saw something in me, and I used an opportunity to work with her, and then it became my career. And so what I'll say about that is Ralph Waldo Emerson said, do not go where the path already is. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. And I think sometimes we get very, very focused and we're like, this is it. This is the only way I'm going to get to where I'm trying to go. And the reality is there's multiple ways up the mountain, right? And there's multiple different, you know, switchbacks and different ways that you can arrive at your destination. And so my advice here is to be open. Absolutely network. Know some of those folks that you do those group projects with, might be in the field later on. So be nice to them. Do your part. Don't be the slacker on that group project. But also, like, you know, networking with your instructors about, you know, how do they get into their career field? Specifically also taking advantage of internship opportunities. I had an amazing experience at Portland State University, and because we are at Portland State having this conversation, take advantage of those. Visit the Career Center, work on your resume, get all of that stuff together now, and prepare for what's next. But don't be too specific. Let things flow naturally.
It's so true. It's important to keep your options open.
It's
Natalie?
Yeah, it's been such good advice. And I'm going to just say it, I think, for the third time out of the three of us, network. Now, mind you, this comes not advice that I actually took myself when I was young and growing, but as looking back at what would have helped. Build that network. Don't go it alone. Ask a lot of questions. Find folks who have been where you haven't yet been. When you're done with university, you shouldn't be done learning. So keep learning, create a learning habit, audiobooks or podcasts or something, so that you are continually exposing yourself to new voices, new narratives, new information. And then I would say the stats are still there. Women and historically underrepresented people are still applying for jobs when they meet 100% of the requirements versus other demographics that might meet 50 or 60% or less of the requirements. Apply for the big jobs. Put yourself out there. You're going to learn. If you get a chance to talk to a hiring manager, if you get feedback, if you just go through the process and better understand what it looks like to apply for that dream job, it's going to help you. You've got nothing to lose.
Sorry, Natalie, I didn't mean to mute you. I meant to remove your pin. But we have another question from the audience. This question is from Tiffany, who is a recent graduate of the College of Engineering and Computer Science at PSU. And so she said, hi, I'm a recent graduate of MCEX and quite fortunately have been given the opportunity to start my career as an engineer at Intel. What do you feel is the most important thing you can do once you have achieved success to ensure that you are holding the door open behind you for other women and underrepresented groups in STEM?
Congratulations. That's the first thing I'd say. Yay. Congratulations, and it's really awesome.
Thank you.
So opening the door, taking it off the hinges, like Traci said, I believe it's very important. And that was one of my I guess, greatest worries when I was in school. Because when I started and it was pretty rough, it was tough. The first thing that got to my mind was not just about my success, as how can I get that success that would leave the door open for people like me afterwards. And so that was actually one of my driving forces when I prayed, when I studied hard, when I stayed in the lab till 3 a.m. That was what I was thinking. I was thinking, how can I achieve that kind of success that would leave the door open for people like me? And thankfully, thank God, it happened, because right after me, we got more admissions of Black people in my department. And at Intel, I still put in a lot of referral for my Black women or my classmates from school, really, people that I went to the same school with, or people that I didn't go to the same school with that I know are very capable and will be a great fit and an addition to Intel. So it's something I do when they reach out, or I reach out and I see your CV, I see your resume, I see you're doing great, but you're interested in this career path. And I'm happy to refer you if you are. And of course, it's also important that I do really well in my position. That way, when you put in a referral, your referral holds water. And they know that if you're referring this person, then this person is definitely good. So that is striving hard for success and being sure that I'm in a position to help other people of that career pathway is something that will definitely keep the door open for people to come after you.
Yeah, so true. And Otega, that's amazing that we have you and you're here from Intel. And I'm glad that Tiffany was able to tune in and hear from you. Thank you for that. Does anybody else have anything else to add?
I would say small things can really be the big things. Speaking up, also being a listener, sharing opportunities, and passing praise. If there's somebody who has done something great, make sure other people know. Amplify voices of people who aren't in the position that you're in. These can be, like I said, small things in a meeting, echoing, I think this person was speaking, or I really liked what they said, or making sure that people know about the work that someone else is doing, and then looking for ways to be a helper, whether that's mentoring or coaching somebody else or just extending your hand. I think that if you do that continuously, it compounds.
So I just have one thing. And if you, I don't know what it looks like at Intel, but if you have the ability to be on hiring, screening, or recommending committees, do it. Bring your voice to those spaces. That's how you have a say-so in who gets interviewed, who ultimately possibly gets chosen to be new. And because you've had that opportunity, you know who those people are, and you can start building connections really early on to help welcome them into the spaces that we occupy. So it's a strategy that I've used even when I wasn't in the C-suite. I was doing that as an advisor, doing that in any capacity I had to be part of hiring choices that were being made. It's important that we're in those spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to move on to another prepared question, and I think we'll have time for this question. And if we have any, yeah, Elizabeth suggested there's one more question at the end that's like a call to action. So we'll move on to this one. We'll fast forward. So obviously it's History Month, today's last day. However, I feel like we always should be celebrating women, and it should be a year-round thing. And so as a call to action, what movements and or causes should we be more aware of? What would you like to shout out? And it can be global, it can be nationwide, it can be Oregon, Portland, whatever you'd like to shout out. Feel free to unmute if you know what you want to say already.
I can start. We've experienced in this country years of challenges with guns in our society. And I want to shout out Moms Demand Action, which is a an organization that is really bringing women together to demand that we move beyond the thoughts and prayers when our children are not safe in our schools to action. Gun sense legislation, bringing people into the political sphere who are at the policymaking table, who will do what is needed to protect our children and our schools from gun violence. And so that's the organization I want to shout out. It is women coming together and saying, we're not going to sit by idly and watch this continue. And so right now it's a timely opportunity to think about this organization, getting involved with this organization. They're active in the state of Oregon and connected to some of the other gun violence organizations. So get active. I'm tired of it. I'm sorry. It's no more thoughts and prayers for me. We need action.
Thank you, Traci. Does anybody else have any other movements and or causes that they would like to shout out?
Is it legal to shout out to Oregon MESA at this point? Because I remember my first time at an All-Win Oregon MESA collaborative event. I was very excited about that because I thought it was awesome. And in my head, I was thinking, can we do like a MESA somewhere in like Africa, in Nigeria, to like involve, can we do like a collaborative event and trying to get talking and see how we can just make, just put more women in STEM or make people aware that it's very, very, we were rooting for them. That's definitely it. So definitely shout out to MESA. And I am actually considering being a part of it, like not just being on the Owen side, being a part of it, because I feel like there's so many ways we can just, I don't know, push people up on that platform, that much needed platform, to just go ahead in the career pathway, especially if you're from a minority.
Yeah, absolutely, Otega. We're gonna definitely stay connected. And I also want to shout out, last year we did a MESA Talks, I believe it was, a different virtual session in partnership with ORWIN, Oregon Women at Intel. It's on our YouTube channel. I'm sure the folks on my team will drop the links in the chat, but please check that out because it's another talk that we had also celebrating Women's History Month. Natalie, you want to shout out?
I mean, while we are at it, I can't leave this space without shouting out PDX WIT. We shouted out MESA, PDX WIT. I am on the board. I met Elizabeth there, and it's actually the first space that I ever walked into and felt comfortable saying I was a woman in tech. And that community has been really big for me, and I know for many, many, many others. It's also expanded my world by getting to know so many different people from so many different communities.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, we're grateful to have a partnership with PDX WIT, and I'm going to be mindful of everyone's time and don't leave yet because we have a feedback form that we would love for you all to fill out before the session ends. We are incentivizing it by turning it into a raffle. So the link to the feedback form will be linked in the chat. Please give us your feedback and help us. If you know speakers, please send them our way. And if you do fill out the feedback form, your name is going to be entered into a raffle for a chance to win a $50 gift card to Por qué no Taqueria. They have 2 locations in Portland, one on Mississippi, one in Southeast. Link in the chat. Please fill that out. If anybody from our panel would like to say last few words, please do. I'm so honored to be here joined by you all. Thank you so much for giving your Friday night at 5 p.m. to Oregon MESA.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you for organizing them.